There it is. Is it? Oh, there it is. Okay. Now recording. Well, I'm here on the back 40 in the wilderness, and then you can see I'm kind of surrounded by farmland. That's north. That's west, roughly. So I'm facing kind of southwest, more westerly, I guess. We're about 30 minutes from the Lake Michigan, here in southwest Michigan. So anyway, let's kind of analyze where we're at in America and in the world. What's going on in the world, kind of the big picture, and whittle it down over the decades. Well, once again, here we go again with the Lone Star tick, and everybody knows it's a man-made virus or whatever, bioengineered whatever tick virus makes people permanently allergic to red meat, which of course falls in line with Bill Gates' meatless products, Beyond Meat and all that. And they don't want us to be strong and healthy and fit and able to resist and think, and critical thinking skills and all of that. So I'm losing track just of my lifetime how many times they've tried to kill us all with various forms of biowarfare. Let's see, AIDS was made in a lab. You can look that up. And you may have heard Alex Jones talking about Tony Fauci, and he was saying AZT is safe and effective. Well, where'd we hear that again? COVID-19, the vaccine was safe and effective. So we got AIDS. We had Gulf War syndrome from the first Gulf War. They did all kinds of experiments on the troops. And I just got lucky. I got out of the service before I had to take any of those vaccines. And apparently some of the people I served with on my ship, they got that stuff, Gulf War syndrome. Nowhere near the action. Some troops were never deployed. They had to stay stateside. They had a knee injury or whatever and couldn't be deployed. And, they ended up with Gulf War syndrome from the vaccines or whatever stuff they gave them. So, AIDS, Gulf War syndrome, COVID-19, we got Lyme disease, and now we got Lone Star tick virus, makes you allergic to meat. What'd they say? Oh, there's some new version of COVID-19 or something coming out. And you had SARS and swine flu, and I'm losing track of it all really over the years, but so trying to kill us all with biowarfare. And they're making the clouds with geoengineering, chemtrails. You can look all that up. I'm probably preaching to the choir to a lot of you. And then they're doing carbon sequestration, which, we're going to suck the CO2 out of the atmosphere, as if that's somehow settled science. But if you remember your basic lessons of photosynthesis, and you're seeing some photosynthesis here as the trees bloom and the grass grows. It grows because of what? Sunlight. And the plants take up CO2 and expel oxygen, right? That's how they respirate. They take in CO2 and spit out oxygen, to put it bluntly, in unscientific terms. And we breathe in oxygen and expel CO2. So what happens when they start sucking out all the CO2 with these massive machines that they're building? It's the fact that they're being built and they're functional and working, and they're burying the CO2 under the ground. Well, at some point you're going to have CO2 levels so low, nothing's going to grow. So what happens when plant life doesn't grow and crops don't grow? population's gonna die off, right? Basically another form of genocide. And we already have farmers, I think 25% going bankrupt just this year, 2026. Can't afford the fertilizer, can't afford diesel fuel. There's already shortages and fuel shortages and diesel fuel and fertilizer, because you need the natural gas to make fertilizer, the potash. It's the primary way they do it. It's not the only way, but the primary way. And Australia's already having problems. Gas stations shutting down, grocery stores shutting down. And people don't understand that the population growth in the world the big boom was primarily due to the massive agriculture, all these big farm machines and the massive monoculture. Well, you can see right here, this is just a small example. You can see some various farm fields there in the background. One of my neighbors does this. Was corn last year. They probably plant soybeans this year. Oh, there's that a turkey down there. Let me zoom in on that. Get you zoom in on that turkey. It sure is a turkey. How much further I can zoom in there? Can I see him? Can I see him? Or can I just see one reflection? Oh, there's one, two. At least one. Anyway, let me zoom back out. So anyway, go back to talking about, yeah, so the big agriculture was what led to the population boom, right? Because until about the 50s or 60s, I mean, it wasn't until the end of World War II there was any major grocery stores. First grocery stores appeared. You know, most everybody grew up on self-sufficient farms. Even my parents grew up on self-sufficient farms. I was born in 70. My dad was born in 40. Mom was born in 45. And they went to the store, the general store. You got flour and salt and sometimes sugar. That's what you got. And then, turn this, and then even harvest time, they have the mill they'd have a truck come out and they would mill their corn they grew on their property and grind up and make cornmeal. That's, you made your cornbread and whatnot out of it. I don't know, maybe they made grits or whatever, corn mush, whatever. And I did that. My one aunt, she literally grew up. She's 12 years older than my mom, and she literally grew up. Her entire childhood was uprooting trees, down there digging and sawing, and wrapping chains and ropes around the stumps. My grandpa would be hanging on to the horses and directing them to pull and whatnot, because he's a big guy. He could handle the horses to make sure they didn't get out of control. And that's what my aunt did. I mean, my great-grandfather gave my grandfather, gave all the kids 40 acres. Here you go, make it happen. Well, you got a property, you got 40 acres covered in trees. You gotta clear the trees so you can farm the land. And literally their house was built from the lumber from the property. So that's kind of background of my family. It's just. But that was, when my mom left home or whatever in 62 or whatever, I mean, that was the thing. Everybody was leaving the farm, so that was the end of the small farmer. Couldn't really compete with the big agriculture business and the big farm machinery. And we've, of course, seen the farm machinery get bigger and bigger, and agriculture got more and more productive. Just like in more of the olden times, the canning and preserving and the meat curing and all the different ways of preserving food was what led to the next generation being able to survive, because you had to have enough food on the shelf to make it till the next harvest. So you had to survive through the winter and hunt and fish and whatever you could do, because if you live in a snowy area, you're not growing anything in the winter. You're not going around getting wild edibles or anything like that, you know. But that's kind of things that people don't really understand, and this big agricultural system, you know, being dependent on the fuel and the natural gas for the fertilizer and all that, and all the technologies being suppressed and everything. You're beginning to see why that's suppressed. It's total power and control, and people that are naive don't understand, gee, why are they trying to kill us all? Well, it's the ultimate power play, the ultimate power move. You know, I mean, if you kill off everybody else, then guess what? Now you own the world, right? Now you control everything, and you and your family and your descendants and your generations of family will control everything, and that's just what they're doing. So yeah, that's kind of what's going on. You got they're trying to destroy the farmers, and you saw the protests in Europe, and blocking out the sun with the chemtrails. We got some sun today, boy. They didn't do much spraying today. Maybe they gave all the pilots Mother's Days off, you know. Of course, that'll change with all the robots, right? They'll just, you know, you don't have to worry about a military that's going to do a coup d'etat or resist or not follow orders when you got all the robots. So, rise of the machines, right? So, that's going to be happening too. The whole digital currency, social credit score, vaccine passport, the digital ID, all of that, the whole slave system. It's been in China for over 10 years, and it's been perfected. It's coming here. It's coming to America. It's coming to the world. They were protesting it, the digital ID in Europe, and people aren't paying attention. They're just, you know, watching their football and all caught up in the pop culture bread and circuses diversion, which bread and circuses was an ancient diversionary tactic developed during the ancient Roman Empire. You can watch the movie Gladiator 1 and Gladiator 2, and they had massive coliseums with 250, 300,000 seating, much more massive than anything we have today, you know. But now we have modern versions of diversion, bread and circuses, you know, TV, video games, internet doom scrolling, just, you know, on and on, you know. And you got people that are just kind of checking out of society, you know, of just average normal culture. They don't leave their basement. They play video games and whatever, and just have no ambition for life. They do nothing, and they get nothing out of life. You know, you get out of life what you put into it. You know, just like anything. You know, you get out of education what you put into it. You know, you put forth the effort to educate yourself, you can educate yourself. You know, I'm gonna get up off this bench, go for a walk a little bit. Let's see, let's go north. Oh, there's that turkey. There's one turkey. You can see them moving there. And oh yeah, you can improve your life. You know, I mean, well, we're seeing a convergence of all these things, right? The economics and everything. And all this is done for a reason and for a purpose. I mean, 67% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. And the reason behind all of this and the value of the currency, being nothing, and, people living paycheck to paycheck, they just struggling to pay their rent and buy their food and do what they need to do. And we're reaching a point where people are going to start saying, this capitalism stuff not working out for me. You got 67%, and that number is probably, outdated, I'm sure, with all the gas prices and everything that's going to affect. That'll keep going up. And so that's the purpose on that, is people to give up on capitalism, and they'll basically be begging for the whole, what is it, the universal basic income, that whole thing. So it's a justification for that is what that all is. And everything kind of works together in a synergistic effect for further desired agenda. And not to be negative Nelly or a doomsayer here, but we're at a point where, okay, it seems like all the big corporations and everything are just all part of this, the whole enslavement system, I guess you could call it. So it's gonna, you gotta have the ground grassroots, but then you also have to have help from the top, right? You gotta have, the big money people and the big money patriots, the big money businesses, the entrepreneurs, the capitalists, everybody that's still patriotic and not part of this enslavement system. We gotta come together and start fighting against it. And what do? Well, you vote with your dollars, and you build strong local communities. Look at all this, all the tranny story time hours at these libraries and at these public schools, and all the nonsense that was going on in the public schools. It didn't all just pop up overnight. People, and once again, we're going back to, people working 2-3 jobs. They don't have time to, talk to their kids about what the hell happened at school. They probably not even seeing their kids. Hell, I was a latchkey kid myself when my mom went to work in 1980. I was maybe 10 years old, I guess, about then. And, you knew how to make yourself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and you'd spend the summer at the local pool and learn to swim like a fish, ride your bike around, and, we didn't have all these pedophile predators snatching kids up and all that stuff. It wasn't too much of a threat, But anyways, you got to get involved in your local communities. You got to vote to the ones out that aren't doing the job. All this stuff, you can talk about crime or whatever. It's not just liberalism. They know what they're part of, especially at the upper levels of federal government. They definitely know what they're a part of. So you get involved at the local level. you shop local, you think like the Amish, right? I mean, they're pretty well sovereign. You know, you grow your own food and have your own livestock, and the way things are going with the whole Iran thing, this could be the moment. I can't say for certain, but the finances, everything's far worse than it was the whole 2008 2009 crash. I mean, there wasn't any more government regulation or any more protections for the people or anything. You remember that whole thing, the whole Occupy Wall Street, and too big to fail, and taxpayers had to bail everybody out. We didn't get a bailout though. No, you gotta declare bankruptcy, or whatever. There wasn't any golden parachutes for us. So what do these people do that, 67% living paycheck to paycheck, not making a living wage? Well, you're going to have to do something that's more valuable. So you're going to have to need some kind of education or training that will be more valuable. I was just picking up a stick. Some kind of education or training that will be more valuable, because prices aren't going to go down anytime soon. And so 67% is kind of an outdated number. It might be closer to 70 now. So about 80% of our economy is consumerism. So if you only have, say, roughly 30% of Americans have expendable money to spend, everybody else is just hand to mouth and, worried about how they're going to pay their rent and put gas in their car, and, trying to juggle the bills and trying to maybe get another job or go to school. And you're going to have a different perspective and think about things differently, because I think like the Waltons. Remember the Waltons TV show? I mean, that was common practice, and still is in a lot of countries, where the whole family lived together, mom and dad and grandma and grandpa and all the kids. And and it is true that you can have as many people as you want on a mortgage. So if you're thinking about getting some property in the country, like we got here, of course we bought this 1988. Matter of fact, it was this time of year. It was early May. And so you can have as many people as you want on a mortgage. You get your friends and family together and loved ones, and next thing you know, you got $1 million property with a house with 10 bathrooms or whatever. You can get you some. $1 million property is like $10,000 a month, but you got 10 families living there. I mean, every family's got a bathroom then. I mean, you got 10 bathrooms. If all of you, everybody's using the bathroom, you got some dysentery or something going on. So, and then with that said, you're out in the country, you can build you some more houses, some barn dominiums or something, And one thing you can do with that is you have it classified as a multi-purpose building. So yeah, it's got bedrooms / offices and bathrooms. You can have as many bedrooms / offices, restrooms, bathrooms as you want, and your local jurisdiction should be able to let you classify it as multi-purpose building, because it's a farm property, right? And then you can do whatever you want. You can have it be a home, a primary residence, secondary residence, you know, and you can live in the thing and hell, have a greenhouse attached to it and grow you some food and generate some heat for the house in the winter. Actually, me and the wife are planning on doing a barn dominium back in the back here somewhere. And so anyway, self-sufficiency is the path to sovereignty, right? The Amish are, I mean, nobody's 100% self-sufficient because you still got to have raw materials if you're going to make a nail to hammer in wood, or you know, saw blade. You know, you can't blacksmith a saw blade. You can't blacksmith a file. That takes machining. Well, you could blacksmith a saw blade like you do on a knife, you know, with the big, thick, wide teeth, you know. But the typical thin saw blade, that requires machines. And a file requires machines. It cuts the file pattern into the metal. But anyways, self-sufficiency is the path to sovereignty. You become ungovernable. That's the ultimate path. And that's kind of a passive aggressive strategy, I guess you could say. And so what are we going to do? What's going to be done? Well, we're seeing a whole lot of nothing. Nobody being arrested, not for any of the Epstein crimes, not for treason and the Afghanistan withdrawal. I mean, pretty much everybody in the military that's ever been in the military, I don't care if you were a dishwasher or whatever, you've watched a few war movies, you understand that you don't leave materiel and weapons behind for the enemy. And they just basically funded the terrorist with 30 years worth of weapons. But they're going to make you register your weapons, right? They make us register them in Michigan. Yeah. Registration, legislation, confiscation, extermination, is that how it goes historically? Yeah, I might have to trim that one a little bit. Yeah, maybe it'll be alright. I'm always finding tree limbs are going to smack me in the face when I'm mowing. Yeah, so in the big picture, that's what you do. But I mean, this is, you know, we're at the tipping point, so to speak. You know, if we don't start getting a handle on this and things don't start happening, I mean, here we are once again with a man-made tick virus, makes people allergic to meat, and everybody knows about it. Everybody knows Bill Gates is behind it, and nothing's happening. Nothing's happening with all the Epstein crimes, you know, the war crimes, the, you know, carbon sequestration, which, you know, plants need CO2, they don't get it, and everything stops. Because when the CO2 was higher in the atmosphere, and we know this from historical records, ice cores and so forth, when CO2 was higher, oxygen levels were higher also. So, we know that, and we know from just basic science about photosynthesis, that what they're doing is wrong and disastrous. And how do we stop them? I don't honestly know, but we've got to all get involved and do our little part, you know. I'm just here making a little video, repeating stuff that other people have said. You know, I don't know anything more than anybody else, but we got to all do our part, I guess. And I'm trying to do mine a little bit. Encourage people to grow your own food and be a little self-sufficient. I mean, even when I grew up in Cincinnati, we had a modest garden. It was maybe 6 foot wide and 40 foot long. I don't know. And we'd grow some tomatoes and beans, and I don't know if we had corn. I don't remember corn, but we'd have some green beans and tomatoes, and Mom grew some rhubarb. We'd have rhubarb pie and ice cream, and you know, fresh tomatoes out of the garden. And we just had a little modest backyard, you know, maybe 30 yards long, not even that. And you know, did what we could. And me and my sister would be down in the basement with my parents breaking beans and putting them in the jars, and Mom had the pressure cookers, you know, and can them over the stove. And you know, you'd have a little something, you know, a little something fresh from the garden throughout the winter, and, you know, and it's my disaster of a I got some wire and rebar J hooks I'm gonna get to hold the weed barrier down. Yeah, daggone wind did a number on it. The 6-inch stakes didn't hold in our sandy soil. The winds start flapping everything around, and it just it just took it all for a ride. I got one strip there that's hanging on. This one in the center, I just kind of redid that a little bit today. I just as I was finding the staples, I just kind of put them in there. But I think I lost some of them staples, quite a bit of them, I think. And so anyway, I'm going to get some wire and those J hooks, 16-inch rebar J hooks. And I'll leave some links to that in these videos. You can buy it through one of my links or something else, whatever. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at in the world. They're killing us all, or trying to kill us all, and nobody in any power seems to be doing anything about it. I mean, in America, in our Constitution, we have the right to, that's our food scrap pile, we have the right to abolish our government and implement new government. I'm no constitutional scholar or anything, but I don't know what mechanism we use to accomplish that. We do a recall election? Do we, you know, you can't always wait around for the next election cycle. We got midterms coming up. That's going to be an interesting midterm cycle. Primaries are important, primary elections, so. But then again, the whole election system and the electronic voting machines are fraudulent, so I'm not saying we give up and just shrug our shoulders and everything's beyond our control or out of our power, because you don't want to believe that or start having those thoughts. Then it's what they call when, like a little kid, they give up, you know, anything they do is wrong and they get punished, so I forget the psychology term for it. learned helplessness. That's the term. Learned helplessness. It's like, you little kid's getting in trouble no matter what he does, and he just kind of gives up, you know. It's kind of, can't do nothing right, and just kind of give up on trying to do anything. So you don't want to get to that learned helplessness point. There's always hope. The elite, they've been doing this for thousands of years, and if they do get the this whole digital currency slave system implemented, it will be a new Dark Ages, high tech Dark Ages, and it will be pretty much impossible to get out of unless the grid goes down or something, and that's another issue, right? That's another possibility, and a legitimate possibility, because if you follow Jonathan Hollerman, griddownconsulting.com, he's on the government EMP commission, and the United States government confiscated a transformer right off the ship from China, and this transformer was full of computer chips that had basically a built-in kill switch. So the EMP grid down scenario is built into the recipe, right? And it's built into the transformers. Excuse me. And one can assume that since these transformers are coming from China mainly, that they've got the program or finger on their button or whatever to implement that kill switch into the transformers and shut down the power grid. And we've seen something similar we did with that Stuxnet virus. What was that? Was that Stuxnet? Was that against Iran or North Korea? I forget. Anyway, so that Stuxnet virus in the PLC, programmable logic controllers, it was there for, who knows, decades probably. And the technicians that put it there, they probably had no idea. They were just installing the hardware, and they probably weren't affiliated with Intel community or anything. They were just technicians, But Intel community works with these companies, and a lot of the companies are government companies, even though you think it's a public company and publicly traded. I mean, you don't have to look any further than Facebook to understand that. They even got a nickname for Facebook. They call it Fedbook, because it's full of feds and FBI agents and everything else. Picked up a stick there. So, anyway. So long term, you build that sovereignty if you can, but do you really have sovereignty if, you don't pay your property tax, which is unconstitutional? Show me where it says they can tax your property. Where does it say that at? Or that you got to pay a fee every year for your vehicle. Where does it say that at, So that sovereignty, just think like the Amish and do that. That's a kind of a long-term solution. But we really got to come together and start implementing some sort of plan. I'll bring some more to the table One of my books I got is Revolutionary Strategies of the Founding Fathers. It's one of the books I have, and I'll kind of peruse through that and do kind of a summary overview of that, and we'll see from there. So I'm going to sign off from now. This was kind of a long one, but we'll see if this even posts. Who knows? It's probably too long. All right, we'll talk at you all later. Bye.